They left India for a reason.
Yeah.
How would you see these two facts, and what are your impressions on this?
Look, the Indian diaspora uh, goes in two waves. The first, of course, is, indentured labor, which was, again, economic need. It was desperate economic need. The second, which started after independence, was the denial of opportunity back home. So if you remember, the earliest test case, for example, for the First Amendment was the Madras High Court and, the judgment regarding affirmative action, well, reservations technically. And that led to a whole Tamil and Andhra Brahmin immigration to America. And after independence, it's mostly been the lack of opportunities. It hasn't been economic desperation. Before independence, it was economic desperation. After independence, it's been the lack of economic opportunity. Of course, the very curious thing is the large parts of the Indian diaspora leave precisely because of socialism in India, and they go and end up becoming the biggest socialists wherever they settle. Be it in America, where 75 to 80% of them vote Democrat and for socialist policies, or in New Zealand, or in UK. The UK, interestingly, because most of them are actually from Uganda and not from India, they tended to be more conservative this time around than normal. So I think socialism, A, is in our blood, and B, we tend to take it wherever we go. But this brings us to the second part of your question, which is, why have we been seeing this wave of immigration out of India in the last few years? And I think the main reason is because the so-called economic corrections we've seen extreme fiscal instability, instability of your financial instruments, pretty much, number one. And number two, there's been an unprecedented strengthening of the middle bureaucracy, which is particularly in your face for most micro, medium, and small businesses. Because remember, it is the middle bureaucracy. It has traditionally always been the middle bureaucracy that is the most extortive. So, for example, if you look at GST, the government keeps coming up with, we've categorized all of these. We've done, we've got dispute resolution mechanisms and things like that. I don't think they realize that none of it actually works on the ground. They're coming up with theoretical solutions to practical problems that they themselves have created, which they don't understand work in practice. Let me give you a simple example. A friend of mine, Yusuf, he runs a home goods store in Bangalore. And what happens to him is, every time a new tax collector comes and decides to classify something as a luxury, even if you have a plastic tap, just because it's gold-plated, even though it costs 100 rupees and maybe the cheapest thing in the showroom, he will claim that it is a luxury commodity. Now, every single time this has to go through the entire arbitration process, and it then has to, they set up the court hearings not in Bangalore, but in Mangalore. So he has to go 400 kilometers, 2, 3, 4 hearings. He may ultimately win. But instead of paying 18% on a 100 rupee item, look at the cost. 18% on a 100 rupee item, or 4 trips to Mangalore, 4 hotel stays, paying a lawyer for the hearing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just cheaper to get extorted. So there's been a very significant, the amount of day-to-day government intrusion into people's lives has gone up. The terrorism of cesses, levies, and duties continues, because, in this country, cess, levy, duty, they're all seen as kabhi badhao, kabhi kam karo. It's something, it's deemed completely arbitrary. They don't seem to realize the kind of knockdown effects it has on businesses and things like that, or their competitiveness. So this was very natural.
Abhijit, I'm only